What's up guys, this is Aiden over here at Miss Triggers. Today I wanted to go over some of the spoilers that we recently got from Magicon Vegas, specifically surrounding Edge of Eternities and Avatar The Last Airbender. So we're just going to jump right into it, starting off here with Tezzeret, Cruel Captain. The card should appear somewhere around here. Tezzeret's a 3 mana colorless planeswalker with 4 starting loyalty, and whenever an artifact you control enters, put a loyalty counter on Tezzeret. His 0 loyalty ability is untap target artifact or creature. If it's an artifact creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. His -3 is search your library for an artifact card with mana value 1 or less, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And his -7 is you get an emblem with, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put 3 +1/+1 counters on target artifact you control. If it's not a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot artifact creature. This is a pretty good card overall, I would say. I want to start off, and I'll probably do this with all the cards, by just talking about the art, because this card looks sick. It's very Phyrexian inspired, spacey. You have the spaceship going around the celestial body, forming a ring around it in the background. I really enjoy this style of borderless art. I hope this is something they kind of keep consistent throughout the cards in Edge of Eternities, because I really like it, frankly. In terms of how the card actually plays, I think it's got 2 things that are really powerful, and the rest is a little disappointing. The fact that you can put a counter on him every single time an artifact enters the battlefield is insanely powerful, I think. There are going to be situations where you can ultimate him the turn that he comes out. The thing is, I think his ultimate kind of sucks. I mean, a -7 to make one of your artifacts a 3/3. I'm sure there are ways you can break that. None are coming to mind off the top of my head, but it's not what I would typically do with this card. I imagine that, 99 out of 100 times you see this card come down, it's going to be doing that -3 that it comes down, searching your library for an artifact with converted mana cost 1 or less. Go get your Soul Ring if you need to ramp. There's so many things you can go get with this. I mean, hell, if you were getting a Tyrian Soul Cleaver with this, I think it would be pretty good. Moving on now, we're going to talk about Sothera, the Super Void. Again, the art for this looks absolutely sick. It is a 4 mana legendary enchantment with whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent chooses a creature they control and exiles it. At the beginning of your instep, if a player controls no creatures, sacrifice Sothera, then put a creature card exiled with it onto the battlefield under your control with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. This card seems pretty good. It's immediately reminiscent of Grave Pact to me. The main difference, and this is kind of an interesting thing with this in general, is a lot of the time you have a card like this, it's sacrifice-based. Grave Pact included, Grave Pact being the enchantment version that does very similar stuff to this, but all that your Playcrafter effects are kind of the next closest thing I can think of off the top of my head, and they're all sacrifice-based. In those sacrifice shells, I don't know if I'm playing this because of the exile. However, literally everywhere else this is going to be better because it is more permanent. You're also getting the +1/+1 counter, so if you're running synergies with this, I think it would be great. I already know that this is probably going to go into my Baitor deck. The thing I do want to talk about with this card that is kind of the only negative I have from what we've seen so far is the textless version of this card. I'm not sure what they're going to call these yet, but I do have a problem with a card that has 8 lines of text on it having a version that is textless the very first time that it comes out. I'm generally a proponent of textless cards. I think they look sick. If you want to run them in your decks and I don't know what it does, that's fine. I have a cell phone in my pocket. I'm not going to make a big deal about having to look up the Oracle text. However, even the only cards I can think of that are textless that have a lot of text on them generally are staples. Things like Cryptic Command is one that comes to mind. However, most people who have played Modern for a while know what Cryptic Command does off the top of their head. When you print a card like Lightning Bolt, everyone who plays Magic knows what Lightning Bolt does. When it's the first time the card's ever been printed, and while this isn't the most complicated card in the world, it has a lot of words on it, and no one has this card memorized yet. Experienced veteran players don't have this card memorized yet. It was spoiled yesterday, So let's go ahead and start talking about Tanuk Memorial Ensign. He is a 3 mana Gruul commander, Kavu pilot, 2/4 landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, Tanuk deals 1 damage to each opponent. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, draw a card. To me, the cool part about this is that draw a card ability. Getting to draw a card off a landfall ability, even if it's only once per turn, is a nice thing to do. I think this slots very nicely into a lot of Gruul landfall decks. Even if we've seen that pinging ability before and they're not the most played things, I don't typically see them even in Gruul specific landfall decks. I do see them sometimes in like mono red pinging type archetypes or hexonals and things like that, but I think this is a card that slots really nicely into Gruul landfall decks, maybe even different Omnath shells. I'm not sure about Temur as a whole or outside of Gruul landfall really, even like the 4 or 5 color Omnaths. I'm not sure if you put this into, there's just so many good options in these decks. However, I think this is an additional option, and if you need some card draw in your landfall deck, this is a great way to do it. Next up we have Harmonious Grove Strider. It is a 5 mana beast with ward 2, and this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. I think the art on this card looks cool. It looks like a mix of an Apatosaurus and a boat and a fern all in one. I don't think this card's going to do anything outside of limited though. I think this is a draft bomb. I mean, ward 2 on something that's going to get a lot of power if the game goes long in limited is pretty powerful. I think this is a limited specific card though. I don't see this going in any commander decks. I mean, just to... this is the same converted mana value as Greensleeves, so I don't think it has a shot at going into any landfall commander decks. There's just so many things in that 5 mana spot, and if you pay 6 mana, there's a million different options that also have their power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control, but they do a lot more than just have protection for themselves. Again, cool card, cool art. It's going to be great in limited. Beyond that, I don't think there's much to talk about with Harmonious Grove Strider though. Next up, I do want to go through these lands real fast. They all look really cool to me. They all have like these starships and are very spacey themed. The one that particularly catches my eye is the Swamp. The Swamp should be appearing here, and I'm not sure what that. It's like some type of like space station with what looks like a laser sword surrounding it in this like mountainous purplish asteroid. It looks very incredible. Most of these lands look incredible. All of them do, frankly. The plains is a little underwhelming. It gives off big American vibes, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I imagine if you're building a patriotic deck for the United States, you're going to be running this card because it looks like the American flag, to be frank. Last up, I want to talk about some Avatar spoilers. Avatar is going to be released on Arena November 18th, and this card looks sick. It should be here. It is a 4/4 Avatar Aang red, green, white, blue, legendary creature, human avatar ally with flying and firebending 2. Whenever you waterbend, earthbend, firebend, or airbend, draw a card. Then if you've done all 4 this turn, you transform Avatar Aang. He transforms into Aang, the Master of Elements, who is a 6/6 legendary creature avatar ally with flying. Spells you control cost Wooburg less to cast. It does not specify that it has to be used on colored pips, so you can use this on something that's a red and 4 mana, and it's now free with this ability. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may transform Aang, Master of Elements. If you do, you gain 4 life, draw 4 cards, put 4 +1/+1 counters on him, and he deals 4 damage to each opponent. So this is a May ability. You do get to choose if you want to do it. Aang has to stick around the table for a turn, but if you don't, you get to keep that insane cost reduction ability. We'll see how difficult it is to flip him. We know nothing about these bending mechanics yet. Aang himself has firebending 2, so that knocks out 1 of the 4, but you still need to waterbend, earthbend, and airbend, which the fact that he has firebending 2, and we don't know how many cards are really going to have airbending, you know, are they gonna make Master Paku or any of the old airbenders? Are they gonna do Legend of Korra stuff, which again opens up a lot there. I think someone may have said a definitive yes or no on whether or not they're going to do Legend of Korra stuff in this set. I'm just not sure whether or not. What I will say though is this card looks absolutely incredible. It has that galaxy foil on it that's very reminiscent of the Wizards of the Coast Pokemon era. It's probably my favorite foiling that Magic does. It looks so good. And getting the Galaxy foiling on these Avatar cards is going to make them incredibly expensive, I imagine. As sad as that is for me personally, just looking at what Final Fantasy is doing right now, what Lord of the Rings has done over time, it's hard for me to imagine that these Galaxy foil treatments are going to be in everyone's or even most people's price ranges. But they look so incredible. Something I do want to note with this card as well is I was kind of concerned that they were going to do a similar thing with Avatar Aang to what they did with Aragorn in the Lord of the Rings sets, or what they just did with SpongeBob, reframing him as Yoda, as like these very good stuff commanders that you can do pretty much whatever you want, and it's going to be a good coherent deck, a good coherent shell. I don't see that with this Avatar Aang card. Again, you have to really, it seems, to get the real value out of it, or really flip him at all and get any value outside of a flying 4/4. You have to be leaning into those bending effects, which seems to be very flavorful and fun, and this will be a way to build a true like bending deck. It'll be my guess, the most generic way to make a bending deck with whatever that new mechanic ends up being. But this will at least give that a powerful, fun commander as they release this new archetype and this new mechanic. So that's pretty much all we know so far from Avatar: The Last Airbender and Edge of Eternities that they released. But I look forward to seeing what comes next, and thank you guys for staying with us. Have a good rest of your day.